Well, welcome to Martini Time. I've been looking forward to this talk tonight because, after all, I'm a Martini priest, and as a Martini priest, I'm really looking forward to talking about the cross. In the last few evenings, we've been talking about different things that I have around my house on some shelves in the foyer. I talked about the frog as the threshold guardian who retrieves the treasure from the unconscious, the hatching from the egg. Talked about the Ganesh as the threshold guardian, and Shiva, the dancing Shiva. All of these are understood not as, to me, not as nouns, but as metaphors, portals that open you. And so I wanted to talk about the cross and the two sides of the cross. Now, we live in a Christian-orientated civilization, and it's impossible to escape the cross. Either you worship it, or you have reference for it, or you reject it, or you ignore it. But either way, it's ever present in some way or the other. And there are two sides to the same cross. One of them is the Protestant cross, and the other one is the Catholic cross. But we look at them as being separate, but I want to look at them as being one cross, because the whole point of religion, spirituality, is to make whole, to make the complex simple, to reduce everything that's not necessary and all unnecessary assumptions and come to the simple one, an integrated whole in which the world becomes one. So this whole idea then of seeing everything as split between Catholics and Protestantism and all that, well, that's okay if you want to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I'm driven to find the whole, the one. And so that requires an individual process of awakening to the whole within you. The whole is not out there, it's within you. When you find it within your own heart, the world becomes one. It's not the other way around, which is what we're conditioned to think. If I could just make the world at peace, then I would be at peace. No, you find peace to yourself, then the world becomes a reflection of your peace. So you have to reverse that process. But let's look at this cross for an instance. Now, I love this. I had my uncle's first wife, Maria, was a Catholic, and she died many years ago. But when I inherited my uncle's things, I inherited what he had saved from his wife, which was a rosary. And if you'll notice, I took the top part of the rosary, which is the Virgin Mother, Mary, and I hung my little jade Buddha on it. Isn't that neat? And it's held up. It really holds up. And so this is one of her crosses, and it's a beautiful cross, as you can see, with the little lotus right there at the center. And then if you want a Protestant cross, well, you just turn it around, and there you are like that, you see. But it's one cross. So let's this one here I wanted to show. At the craft show, there was, I don't know if he ever comes back or not, but there was a fellow there who carved crosses, and I would buy some that I liked, and this is one I liked. He carved the thorns on the cross. So there, what this is, excuse me, my throat's getting dry. What we're looking at here is suffering. And the cross in itself is kind of like an abstract symbol of a man, two arms, you know. And so we have a man hanging from it and nailed to the cross, you see. And I, in my own path, I have tried to find unity between the East and the West. That would be yoga and Buddhism and Christianity and Western philosophy Western science, mysticism on both ends of the aisle, the East and West. And all of these things have been my work in my life is to find unity in this instead of division. And you'll be surprised at what you can discover when your intention is unity rather than exclusion and separation, you see. So when your intention is unity, things come together. Understanding comes up and dots are connected and things make sense. Whereas before it was confusing, separated, fragmented, painful. So this pain of separation, this pain of fragmentation is the essential suffering of the Christian cross and also the suffering of Buddha. Buddha said in his first noble truth, life is suffering. And Zorba the Greek says life is trouble. You see, life is suffering. And people think, well, it's pessimistic. And life isn't suffering. Who wants to think that? You know, it's kind of like Trump's American carnage. You know, that's very dark. You know, America is suffering. Life is suffering. Well, I don't want to sidetrack here, but I just came on my mind. But this idea that life is suffering, and then I think Christ said, we suffer because we don't know how to suffer. So what is the teaching here of the Christ on the cross is how to suffer. And if you know how to suffer, the Christ turns into that, which is liberation from suffering. See, you have suffering, liberation from suffering. But it's not separated by time, like in the story, you've got Christ crucified on Friday and then liberated on Sunday. You know, so there's time. Did you ever realize that the moon, the cycle of the moon, the dying and resurrected moon, goes into the waning moon? The waning moon dies into the tomb, and then it comes up reborn. So in mythology, the Christ is symbolic with the moon, dying and resurrected, 3 days in the night, 3 days in the tomb, you see. So this idea then is that when we view these symbols and these religious metaphors, and please don't, when I say metaphor, that doesn't mean fantasy. It means that you are looking at the symbol, the religious symbol, from the heart of now instead of in time or past. See, most of us look at Christ and Jesus and religion in time, which is where we are suffering, and we think of, well, Jesus happened in the past. And resurrection is happening in the future. Right now, I'm suffering, you see. So I've got this Jesus is back there, and then we've got resurrection or promised land or a better tomorrow or a better place in future. But right now, I'm suffering. I'm hanging from the cross right now. So we do all kinds of things to get off the cross. Self-help, we got to do yoga, meditate, go to church more, read more scriptures, have a martini. You know, so we do all kinds of things to get off the cross. But when we look at it through a different lens, the cross is one. So if you know how, to me, what the teaching is, and this is more of a Gnostic interpretation or a mystical interpretation, understanding, is that if you know how to suffer, there is a transformative, or the suffering is substantially changed, like alchemy. The base metal is changed into gold. If you understand what suffering is and how to suffer, how to engage suffering. That very engagement of suffering turns the cross, you see. So it's not like, I got to do it, I got to suffer for, how long do I have to suffer before I get off this thing? It's not that at all. That's in time. But this, you see, this is also a symbol of the horizontal is the ruler of time, past, hours, years, future, right? It's horizontal, and we're running along the top of it, trying to, on a treadmill, trying to get to what? Trying to get to this vertical beam. The vertical beam is the eternal now. It's always now. This is Eckhart Tolle, the power of now. It's right now. It's always now. Right now, it's now. It's now. It's now. It's now. It's always right now. You know, I can say I'll talk to you in 5 minutes, but it's always going to be now. So this beam, you see, is elusive when we live in time. All we see is a treadmill. All we see is a horizontal beam. You see, we're on this treadmill. We've lost the vertical beam. So the vertical beam and suffering, you see, the pain of life, the pain of consciousness, not the physical pain, I stick myself with a knife, but the psychological, the mental pain of my consciousness, which is me, you see, is in time because it wants to get out of it. It'll do anything, pay anything, go anywhere, do what somebody tells them, anything to get out of that pain, you see, but there's no way out, right? So the suffering that, right, so what does Jesus do? Now Jesus, unlike Buddhism is more of a psychological teaching, where the teaching of Jesus is dramatic. It's like a play. But you have to understand the play metaphorically in order to get the power of the teaching. Otherwise, it's just something in history, and it has facts, so you got to find out where the cross was and get a piece of wood of it, or, you know, it's got to be anchored in facts. But the metaphor liberates it from facts, and it opens it in your heart, you see. My wife is coming in from the thing, so come on in, and you want to go through the kitchen? Yeah, okay. See, this is odd. So the teaching here is that how did Christ go? The cross is suffering, remember? This, you see, the thorns of suffering. So this is the thorns of consciousness. How did Christ go to it? Well, he went to it willingly. He didn't go dragging. They didn't drag him there. He didn't get out of it. He could have got out of it. He went willingly, right? He accepted the suffering. Well, now, see, when we look at this in time, we think, well, he did it. So how can I do that, you see? I can't do that. Or Jesus was God. Well, sure, he did. Or he did it for me. So I don't have to do it, you see. But none of that works. We're still on the treadmill. We're still on the horizontal beam. So the teaching that I see in this is that when he demonstrates with his physical act, you know, like, so this is like a drama play that has a teaching in it. He goes to the suffering. Now, where is the suffering? All right, the suffering is very simple. Like my wife just came in, and if there was either two sides of here, right? If I was on this side, I would say, "Get out! You're interrupting. Don't interrupt this. Go around." What was that? Or the other side of the cross was, "Yeah, oh, come on in, go on through." Okay. If I didn't accept this, the suffering was me. The pain of being interrupted, disturbed, you see, my plan in time. I'm doing this in time, so if my plan is disturbed, there's suffering. It's a feeling, which quickly grows into an emotion and an anger and a resistance, you see. I didn't accept the suffering, and I would be hanging on the cross. Maybe my wife would get after me afterwards, you see. Or this way. I accept, come on in. It's okay. You're interrupting, you're no problem. You're not interrupting. Come on in, go through. We'll integrate you into this moment. I integrate you and accept you into this moment, even though you're not in my plan. I have no plans, you see. I have no expectations of having a perfect talk. So I accept anything. So I accept the what normally would be pain and suffering that I would blame on her. I accept, well, actually, I didn't have any suffering. But if I did have suffering, interruption, don't bother me, I would say, if I was listening to the teaching of the cross, I would say,